One Piece, Impel Down's guard. I neither like the plundering pirates nor the current world government. That's why I prefer to be like a blade of grass swaying in the wind. Some things I should manage, I turn a blind eye to, and some things I shouldn't manage, I choose to interfere with anyway. This is my justice. Facing the newly promoted Admiral, the first warden of Impel Down, Figo, explained. Kizaru, got it. Returning to his office, he wrote down Ambiguous Justice and hung it on the wall. Chapter 1. Impel Down Level 1 Jailer. A pure white shirt, a beige coat. A wide-brimmed hat on his head, a crescent blade at his waist. The young man in the mirror wore a uniform, appearing around 20 years old. He was tall, strong, and vigorous, full of youthful energy, though his eyes showed a hint of emptiness and confusion. He bent his arm slightly, clenched his fist, and his biceps swelled to almost burst his shirt. The overwhelming sense of strength, never felt before, made Figo even more at a loss for words. He had become younger and stronger, and even his hairline seemed healthier than before. Because he had traveled through time. Figo grew up reading web novels and often fantasized about such things. But when it actually happened, he couldn't accept it immediately. In the half hour after crossing over, Figo first thought he was dreaming, then nervously familiarized himself with his new environment once he confirmed it was real. It was only now that he thought to look in the mirror. This body is a real bargain. He smiled in self-consolation at the mirror, then stepped back and sat on the wooden bed, continuing to sort through his predecessor's memories. His full name was Gaston Figo. Yesterday, he was a lieutenant in the Marine headquarters. Now, he had become a jailer in the underwater Great Prison Impel Down, specifically in his jailer's dormitory. Impel Down, Marine headquarters. These iconic names made it clear he was in the world of One Piece. Isn't it supposed to be Gast D. Figo? This didn't quite fit the usual rules of time travel. Figo had watched the anime but stopped around the Doflamingo arc due to the dragging plot. However, he had a general understanding of the later storylines through fan content. He had the advantage of a time traveler familiar with the plot. But the memories told him it wasn't that simple. In his memories, the current Marine Admiral was not Sengoku, he had never heard of the three admirals, and even Marine hero Garp was nowhere to be found. The world was in chaos, with no kings and no legends of great treasures. What year was the Sea Circle calendar 1414? Who remembers the years if they are serious about watching anime? Figo couldn't confirm it, but he knew it was probably a long time before the story began, far enough that he might not live to see Luffy's birth. Time travel was fine, but why did he end up as an ancestor? What kind of situation is this? Chief Figo. Why haven't you gone to breakfast? Are you awake? The first batch of prisoners for level 1 is coming, we need to go to the baptism room. Just as his thoughts started to drift, a shout from outside the dormitory brought Figo back to reality. He paused for 2 seconds, then replied in a deep voice, I'll be there soon. Yes, Chief. More recent memories resurfaced. Figo realized he was not just a jailer but also not a simple one. This prison, known in later times as the impregnable Impel Down, had only been completed half a month ago. Figo was one of the first jailers to respond to the recruitment for Impel Down. With his previous rank of lieutenant, Figo had received a minor official position. Chief, managing a small squad of 20, responsible for most of the work on the first level of Impel Down. The term was 1 year, after which he could choose to transfer. This made Figo even more troubled. Jailer, it's not much different from being in jail, is it? What a lousy place this is. Overthinking was useless. Figo straightened his clothes, left the dormitory, and followed his memories to the entrance of Impel Down, recalling what the baptism room was. His expression turned somewhat heavy. The so-called baptism involved stripping the new pirate prisoners naked and dunking them into a pot of boiling water to kill all the bacteria and toxins on their bodies. In the world of pirates, water boils at 100 degrees too. It's called baptism, but it might as well be written as torture. He quickly witnessed this torture. When a pirate was stripped naked and suspended above boiling water, realizing what was about to happen, he let out a terrified scream, which turned into a very brief scream as he plunged into the water with a splash. Ah! Followed by the sounds of struggling and gulping water. The struggling sounds gradually weakened. When they completely stopped, the pirate was pulled out of the water. The previously ferocious-looking pirate now resembled a cooked shrimp, with blisters of varying sizes all over his skin, large patches of hair falling off, and his esophagus severely burned from drinking boiling water. His mouth hung open, saliva dribbling uncontrollably, his eyes rolled back, and his limbs twitched. A terrifying sight. 2 jailers then found a set of fitting prison clothes for the unconscious pirate, dressing him roughly. Any slight movement of his scalded skin would peel it back, exposing raw flesh, mixed with the smell of cooked meat and rot, making one's stomach churn. The intense pain caused the unconscious pirate's body to convulse continuously. The gruesome torture also made the other pirates awaiting baptism tremble in fear. However, the chains binding their limbs, days of starvation, and the jailers' long knives only elicited meaningless curses and pleas for mercy from them. This resulted in beatings. As a chief, Figo signaled 2 jailers to act with his eyes to cover up his heart racing at nearly 200 beats per minute. He was neither a medical student nor a special forces soldier. He had never seen such a scene before. Fortunately, the peculiar art style of the One Piece world helped Figo overcome some of his psychological discomfort. Look at the second guy being hoisted up. He must be over 3 meters tall, with a waist thicker than a water barrel, weighing at least 300 kilograms. His facial features were extremely disproportionate, with the mouth almost reaching his ears, occupying half his face, and 2 sharp fangs sticking out from his upper lip. Can you call this a human? The jailers looked normal enough, but the pirates seemed to be of rare species, each more bizarre than the last, not resembling humans at all. This isn't a human, this isn't a human. Wild boar spirit, wild boar spirit. Figo kept telling himself this, feeling much better. When the wild boar spirit was pulled out after a while of boiling, the smell of meat made Figo feel a bit hungry. Probably because he hadn't had breakfast. Ugh! Figo's face turned slightly green, and he quickly said, "Those who aren't operating the winch, don't just stand here. Send the baptized pirates away immediately." After saying this, Figo picked up the first pirate who had cooled down and left the baptism room, quickly heading to the prison area. The jailers were stunned for 2 seconds before responding, "Yes, Chief." They were a bit puzzled. Why did the chief go himself after giving the orders? Figo, of course, feared losing control in public. Leaving the baptism room, he took several deep breaths to suppress his nausea. Fortunately, his current body was very strong. In his memories, baptism was just the welcome gift for the prisoners. There would be even more bloody punishments for them periodically afterward. Impel Down truly was a hellish place. He had to leave, had to find a way to transfer. But, where could he go? He silently glanced at the pirate whose face was scalded out of shape. This was also a sturdy guy weighing over 200 pounds, but Figo, now, lifted him with one hand without much effort. Now, he was definitely as strong as Hercules. In ancient times, he would be like Xiang Yu, but he was just a small fry in the world of pirates. Moreover, the unreasonable weather changes, frequent sea disasters, brutal and murderous pirates, and strange diseases. Where is the safe zone in this world? The residential area of Marine headquarters? Figo arrived at cell number 1, opened the door, threw the pirate inside, and locked it. Turning back, 2 jailers were carrying the wild boar spirit dressed in prison clothes towards him. "Chief," they greeted from a distance. Figo, distracted by future plans, absent-mindedly nodded to them as a greeting. Suddenly, a strange dizziness hit him. A green-skinned, nameless book seemed to emerge from the depths of his mind, pages flipping, opening a blank page, and imprinting the image of the prisoner he had just locked up, followed by text. Prisoner, Bud. Level, N7. Status, imprisoned. Crime Index, 12. Capture participation, 5%. Gain, physique +4, 98, level 1 ordinary. Thump thump thump. This time, Figo's heart rate instantly exceeded 200 beats per minute. Chapter 2. Prison Files. Figo, well versed in web novels, immediately understood what had appeared in his mind. He was more pleasantly surprised than shocked. Time travelers always have some sort of cheat. Talent, memory, knowledge, encounter, or system cheat. The next moment, Figo absorbed and comprehended information about the nameless book. It was a prison file belonging to him. Figo didn't ponder much on the source of the file, assuming it was a gift from the deity who sent him across time. He cared more about how to use this file. It was very simple. As long as Figo captured criminals and imprisoned them, the file in his mind would record the criminal's information and, based on their abilities, give Figo a random enhancement of one of his abilities. The extent of the enhancement was influenced by 3 factors. First was the criminal's level, i.e., their strength. The prison file classified criminals into 4 major levels, N, R, SR, and SSR. Each major level was divided into 9 sub-levels. The higher the criminal's level, the more Figo gained after imprisoning them. Second was Figo's participation in capturing the criminal. The more he participated, the greater his gain. Third was the criminal's crime index, indicating how much evil they had committed. The more heinous the criminal, the more Figo gained from capturing them. This is supposed to make me personally capture those heinous pirates, acting as a nemesis of evil. As the book in his mind dissipated, Figo snapped out of his daze and shook his head internally. Becoming a nemesis of evil was impossible, it was too dangerous. At most, he would find ways to earn rewards. The pirate he had just imprisoned showed that this process of escorting and imprisoning was worth 5% participation, which, although much less than capturing the pirate himself, was almost like getting it for free. Looking at it this way, Impel Down seemed pretty good. Bang! The sound of an iron door closing came, and Figo turned to look at cell number 2, seeing 2 jailers having already sent the wild boar spirit inside. He felt a bit regretful. If he had snapped out of his daze earlier, he could have taken over from the 2 jailers before they sent the wild boar spirit into the cell, making the final move to see if it counted as his participation. He had missed one. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the file in his mind surfaced again, opening a blank page and imprinting the wild boar spirit's image, followed by text. Prisoner, Tubisu. Level, N8. Status, imprisoned. Crime index, 11. Capture participation, 1%. Gain, water skills +1. 55, level 1 ordinary. This counts too? Participation 1%. Figo was stunned, quickly realizing, because they are my subordinates, escorting prisoners under my orders? This counts as my participation. This time, he snapped out of it quickly, seizing the 3rd pirate who had undergone baptism before the jailer could send him to the cell. I'll do it. Chief. Is this okay? The jailer stood dumbfounded, full of questions. Figo ignored him, completing his test. The file in his mind surfaced for the 3rd time. Prisoner, Neil Baha. Level, N7. Status, imprisoned. Crime index, 8. Capture participation, 2%. Gain, navigation skills +1. 23, level 1 navigation apprentice. Only 2%. Figo quickly analyzed and calculated in his mind. It seemed that slacking off was not an option. He gritted his teeth and returned to the baptism room, saying, "You 3 stay here and keep an eye on the ones just sent to the cells, no need to come back." "Yes, Chief." As Figo walked away, the 3 jailers exchanged glances, feeling that their chief was acting strangely. However, since they had only gathered at Impel Down yesterday, they were all ordinary sailors and didn't know Figo's personality, so they didn't dare to ask. Figo returned to the baptism room at his fastest pace, encountering 2 jailers escorting prisoners along the way, giving them the same instructions. The baptism torture was still ongoing. Figo didn't look, instead instructing, 5 of you stay in the prison area to patrol. The rest of us, 16 in total, should ensure that no more than 4 people leave the baptism room at the same time, leaving at least 12 here. Saying this, Figo grabbed another baptized pirate and continued, "We will take turns escorting, avoiding any lapses that might give these scumbags a chance. Understand?" "Understood, yes, Chief." Figo's orders seemed strict and hard to get along with. The jailers exchanged glances. What happened next surprised them even more. Figo asked them to take turns, but he showed no intention of taking turns himself. The order was that no more than 4 people leave the baptism room at the same time, but each time, Figo was among the 4. Going back and forth between the baptism room on the platform above sea level and the 1st level prison area of Impel Down, once, twice, 7 times, 8 times. Watching Figo gradually breathing heavily, the jailers, who had gone no more than twice, wanted to persuade him to rest but were firmly refused by Figo, quietly discussing and becoming more impressed. This is called leading by example. The jailers might not know the term, but it didn't prevent them from recognizing and respecting Figo as their new officer. It seems Chief Figo is a diligent officer with a cold exterior but a warm heart. Figo didn't care about what the jailers were imagining. Initially, he was testing the prison file's effects, but later he got excited about the gains. Going up and down the stairs, carrying weights up to 500 pounds at a time, he made 9 trips in total. Even with his current physical condition, he was very tired, but all the fatigue was filled with satisfaction. Swordsmanship +2. 83, Level 1 Swordsman Apprentice. Theft +1. 1, Level 0 Clumsy Thief. Cannon Operation +3. 23, Level 1 Apprentice Cannoneer. Cooking +2. 9, Level 0 Poison Cook. Physique +2. 100, Level 2 Strong. There were a total of 30 pirates in this batch. The prison file surfaced 30 times, with 9 having 5% participation, 7 with 2%, and 14 with 1%, covering more than 10 abilities, giving Figo an all-around enhancement. He also figured out some hidden rules of the prison file, such as each ability from 0 to 9 is level 0, 10 to 99 is level 1, and above 100 is level 2? Does that mean it takes over 1000 to reach level 3? He flexed his arm again, feeling the noticeably firmer biceps, thinking he could probably punch a cow to death now. At 100 physique, he felt this way. What about 1000 physique? However, he only gained 6 points of physique from 30 pirates. Impel Down might get such a batch every 1 or 2 weeks, so reaching 1000 would take many years, even with his own training. But Impel Down has more than one level. In Figo's memory, the Marine headquarters had intentionally been imprisoning pirates who were supposed to be executed for the newly built Impel Down for a month, gathering them to be sent here. There would be another batch of level 2 prisoners in the afternoon. A level 1 chief couldn't manage level 2. But if I go to help, the level 2 chief shouldn't refuse, right? And level 3, level 4. SR, SSR. I might have a chance to gain from all of them? Impel Down is really a great place. Chapter 3. 1 year. SSS Slurp Slurp. In the level 1 Impel Down jailer's cafeteria, Figo quickly slurped up the noodles. The large bowl of seafood noodles was gone in less than half a minute, with barely any broth left. He pushed the empty bowl forward, revealing a high stack of empty bowls already in front of him. Before he could speak, another bowl of noodles was handed to him. Chief Figo, this is your 37th bowl. You've broken your record again, said the jailer serving him. Oh, really? Figo mumbled, I wasn't counting. Thanks. Time had flown by, and a year had passed. Figo was now completely accustomed to life in Impel Down and had become quite familiar with the other jailers. The scene before him was a result of the prison file in his mind. That thing didn't strictly adhere to scientific principles, but it wasn't entirely unscientific either. When Figo gained swordsmanship skills, he didn't instantly comprehend sword techniques. Instead, he was inspired and rapidly improved his actual skills when practicing. When he gained physique, Figo immediately became stronger, but he also became very hungry for a while, as if compensating for some deficiency. Because of the constant gains in physique, he gradually became a big eater, consuming enough for 10 men. Just as he was about to start on his 37th bowl, the speaker Den Den Mushi in a corner of the cafeteria rang. Bruru Bruru, Bruru Bruru. Moshi Moshi, Moshi Moshi. Is Chief Figo there? A voice came from the speaker Den Den Mushi, this is the control room. We just received a message from headquarters. A transport ship will arrive at Impel Down in half an hour. There's only one prisoner on board, who needs to be detained in level 4. Figo walked over and pressed the button on the Den Den Mushi's back twice. Figo here. Is Deputy Chief Jailer Kincaid there? Do I need to escort this pirate to level 4 alone? It's up to you. The voice from the Den Den Mushi switched to a rough male voice. These speaker Den Den Mushi were spread throughout the jailer's living area, allowing the control room to contact anyone immediately, which was very convenient. After hanging up, Figo patted his belly and went back to pick up the noodle bowl. Slurp. His not-so-large mouth seemed to turn into a black hole, swallowing the entire bowl of noodles in 5 seconds. Burp just full enough, time to get to work. Meanwhile, in the training area, a man over 2.5 meters tall, broad-shouldered, and extremely muscular, hung up the Den Den Mushi and walked to a massive stone roller marked 1 ton. He grabbed it and continued his arm training. You're quite popular, Figo, said a tall, lean young man beside him. Even though the fourth level is your and the chief jailer's responsibility, the control room contacted Figo first when they heard a fourth level prisoner was coming. Impel Down, the underwater great prison, had 6 levels in total, with stronger prisoners detained at deeper levels. Each level had designated officials in charge. The first 3 levels each had a chief, while the 4th level was managed by the chief jailer and the deputy chief jailer. The 5th and 6th levels were overseen by the warden and deputy warden. Impel Down, having been established only a year ago, hadn't yet appointed a director. As the deputy chief jailer, Kincaid was considered the 4th-ranking figure in Impel Down. Hearing the young man's seemingly innocent remark, he didn't stop lifting the stone roller. If you can do most of the work ahead of the jailers like Figo, taking on all the escort tasks for the first 4 levels, saving us trouble, you can be that popular too. If not for the extreme danger of 5th and 6th level prisoners requiring the warden's personal attention, he alone could handle half of Impel Down's work. Chief of the 3rd level, Xiao, shrugged, picked up a smaller stone block, and said, I don't intend to compete with him in this regard. If I have free time, I'd rather sleep in my dorm or train here. By the way, Lord Kincaid, I heard the chief jailer will be transferred back to Marine headquarters after the 1-year term. Lord Raoul is a rising star valued by the Marine Admiral. Coming to Impel Down for a year was just for quiet training and accumulating experience. This time, when he returns to the Marines, he'll likely skip over Commodore and directly become a Rear Admiral. Kincaid spoke with undisguised envy. Then, can I congratulate you on your promotion to Chief Jailer in advance? Xiao asked. If you become the Chief Jailer, the vacant Deputy Chief Jailer position will likely go to Figo, right? Kincaid's eyebrows furrowed, and he glanced sideways at Xiao, accelerating his lifting of the stone roller. The 1-ton heavy object whistled dangerously in his hands, then crashed to the ground with a heavy thud. Kincaid's voice became rough. I won't easily accept that. I don't dislike him, but having good relationships doesn't help much in intimidating the fierce pirates in the 4th level. To become the Deputy Chief Jailer, there's only one standard. He turned to Xiao, as if understanding Xiao's thoughts, and said in a low voice, strength. Xiao froze, then smiled, then I can rest assured, Chief Jailer. In the passage of level 1 prison area, Figo suddenly heard faint screams from a distance. Ah! Just kill me. No. Figo quickly approached, arriving at a relatively open area where he saw a prisoner, stripped to the waist, tied to a table, being tortured by 2 jailers with various instruments. What's going on here? Ah, Chief Figo. The 2 jailers stood up straight to greet him, then grinned. This guy was being unruly, trying to steal bread from new inmates. We're teaching him a lesson. No, I won't do it again, boo-hoo, the prisoner, whose back was a bloody mess, whimpered. Stealing bread from new inmates was just an excuse. Impel Down was no charity, they didn't just imprison these pirates and feed them. Although there were no places like the scorching hell yet to torture prisoners, the jailers' wanton beatings could still turn this place into hell on earth. This wasn't the first time Figo had seen this. He looked at the prisoner on the table and mentally accessed the prison file, finding the corresponding page. Crime Index, 17. According to Figo's understanding, based on modern universal values, a crime index of 1 to 3 might warrant a term of imprisonment or life sentence, 3 to 5 could mean immediate execution, 5 to 10 should be executed within 5 minutes without any fuss, and 17 meant that the whimpering, begging guy before him had at least 20 innocent lives on his hands. So Figo took the whip from the jailer's hand. Under the terrified gaze of the prisoner on the table, he swung it. Swoosh! Crack! Blood splattered. Flesh flew. The force of the whip, far greater than the jailer's, brought the prisoner instant suffocation. His head jerked up, eyes bulging, tongue hanging out long, unable to even scream, and after a while, his head drooped. He fell unconscious. Figo, expressionless, handed the whip back. That's enough. Don't kill him. Throw him into an empty cell. You two, come with me to the baptism room to receive a ship. Ah, yes, Chief. Figo nodded and continued towards the baptism room, feeling a bit introspective. The power of habit was strong. A year ago, he felt uneasy watching baptisms. Now, he could administer cruel torture to prisoners without flinching. This kind of growth felt quite good. 4th level prisoners are usually rated R6 to R9. I hope this one is stronger. Figo looked forward to the new prisoner. After waiting in the baptism room for a while, the warship docked at Impel Down. 2 marine lieutenants dragged a heavily chained prisoner off the ship. Figo had seen all kinds of pirates in the past year, but this one still surprised and intrigued him. Blue-green skin, a strong body, serrated teeth, and a fish head. This is a fish man. Chapter 4. The Power of Fishmen. There are many strange and diverse races among the pirates. The fishmen are relatively numerous and common. They possess physiques that ordinary humans do not have and can swim freely in the sea. This was also the first time Impel Down had received a non-human prisoner. However, there was no difference in treatment. Under the baptism of boiling water, the fishman couldn't withstand it and obediently turned into boiled fish. Moreover, this unknown fishman already had many wounds from a fierce battle when captured. During the baptism, all his wounds reopened, nearly dyeing the large pot of water red. Even with his strong physique, he lost consciousness when fished out, his head lolling. After finding an oversized prison uniform for the fishman, Figo completed the handover with the transport ship, expertly lifting the fishman and leaving the sea platform. He felt a bit of anticipation. "A fishman, hey? I wonder if my prison file will include fishman karate, and if I can learn it." His thoughts were interrupted as the fishman in his hand quietly opened his eyes, the blue hand close to Figo's body clenched into a fist. Fishman karate water shot. The residual water droplets from the baptism turned into powerful water bullets as he swung his hand. But before he could strike, Figo suddenly let go of his collar. The fishman lost balance, and his prepared attack hit the ceiling. The fishman's face showed shock, and in the next instant, he was struck by the handle of Figo's sword, distorting his face. His mouth twisted, saliva and blood splattered. The fishman tumbled down the stairs from the first floor, falling several dozen steps. All his wounds reopened, and at the bottom of the stairs, he convulsed and struggled, unable to get up. Figo reattached his sword to his side and looked up at the ceiling damaged by the water bullets. Generally, prisoners in the 3rd and 4th levels had strong enough physiques that boiling water couldn't severely injure them. Figo had experienced this kind of incident over a dozen times in the past year, he was used to it. This time, however, the attack was slightly more powerful. Because he's a fishman and didn't choke on water. He judged the reason, walked down, and picked up the fishman again, nodding to the corner's surveillance den mushi to indicate that everything was fine. "Don't bring trouble on yourself, fat-headed fish." Fat-headed fish. The fishman's eyes were filled with ferocity, but he couldn't withstand the weakness caused by massive blood loss. He could only look at Figo's handsome face and curse bitterly, "Damn marine. Lapdog of the celestial dragons." This was routine. Figo had heard all kinds of filthy words from these criminals. It was all trivial. After staying in Impel Down for a while, the prisoners would know to behave. However, this time, the fat-headed fish's content was slightly different. It was the first time Figo had heard the term celestial dragons since his time travel. He asked, "What did the celestial dragons do to you?" Perhaps feeling Figo's lack of respect in his tone, the fat-headed fish actually answered, "Those bastards took my brother, captured him as a slave for no reason. That's it. Nothing new." Figo was a bit disappointed and ignored him. The fat-headed fish was enraged by Figo's attitude, struggling and shouting, "Damn lapdog! Let me go! I'll kill you!" Annoyed by the noise, Figo had to drag him on the ground instead, keeping him away from his ears. The clinking of chains and the sound of the fishman's head hitting the ground masked the cursing as they descended the stairs. By the time they reached the 4th level, Figo looked down to find the fat-headed fish truly unconscious. He found an empty cell and threw him in. Job done. Figo began to anticipate the benefits of this imprisonment. The stronger the pirate, the slower the prison file recorded their information. Figo waited for nearly half a minute before the green book reappeared in his mind. Prisoner, a guy. Level, R9. Status, imprisoned. Crime index, 27. Capture participation, 5%. Selectable gains, shipwright, brewing, fish manpower, rare. Crime index 27. Figo was mentally prepared. He had encountered such situations many times. Captured criminals often wept about their misery and injustice, making one feel pity. Initially, Figo had sympathized with one or two, thinking they were wronged, Later, reading their files taught him valuable lessons. Now, he trusted nothing but the crime index in his prison file, which had never been wrong. But fishman power, rare. It was the first time he had imprisoned a fishman, so seeing this fishman exclusive ability wasn't surprising. But in the past year, no ability had been marked as rare. Unlike N-level criminals, R-level criminals offered 3 random choices for rewards. The other 2 abilities, shipwright and brewing, from a guy only made Figo appreciate his versatility. Naturally, he chose the rare fishman power. Even though Figo didn't know its effect yet. Gain, fishman power, rare, plus 35? 35, level 1 fishman juvenile. Upon receiving the gain, Figo immediately felt something different in his body. He clenched his fist, then relaxed. It seems my strength hasn't increased. The level name is Fishman Juvenile. He pondered silently, an ability related to fishmen. I should jump into the sea and try swimming when the supply ship arrives in a few days. Meanwhile, on the Sabayati archipelago. In District 17, in an abandoned house, a fishman, wrapped tightly in a cloak, suddenly pushed the door open. Inside, the sound startled 2 other fishmen, each with bandages. Papas? How did it go? Any news? Where did those damn Marines take Bossagai? Is Bossagai okay? The cloaked fishman, Papas, removed his cloak and nodded. For now, he's fine. The Marines didn't execute Bossagai immediately. They will likely take him to Impel Down. Impel Down? What is that place? An underwater prison, Papas replied. It was established about a year ago, not well known, but in the past year, several pirates with bounties over 100 million have been captured and taken there. Bossagai will be too. An underwater prison. Underwater. The 2 fishmen exchanged glances, feeling restless. Do you know the exact location? Papas, it's in the Com Belt, not far from Marine headquarters. It might be very dangerous. The Com Belt. Although fishmen could swim freely in the sea, an underwater prison would be advantageous terrain for them, but the giant sea kings in the Com Belt didn't recognize them as kin. Bossagai was captured by the Marines because of us. We must save him. One fishman gritted his teeth. If you're afraid to die, I'm not. Of course we have to save him. Papas said, but you are injured. We must recover for a couple of days and think of a plan before going. The Marines are searching for us all over the island. Do you want Bossagai's sacrifice to be in vain? A plan. The Com Belt, damn. The Marines rely on their technology to navigate safely in the Com Belt. One fishman suddenly said, what if we follow behind the Marine ships? The 3 fishmen's eyes lit up. This plan was much more feasible than swimming directly across. Chapter 5. Dangerous Encounter. 4 days later, a supply ship was due to arrive. According to the schedule, the level 3 jailers were to transport the supplies. Chief Xiao led 17 jailers to the sea platform, excluding 3 on patrol. While waiting for the ship, Xiao occasionally glanced back at the entrance of Impel Down, and just as he expected, Figo arrived before the supply ship. Chief Figo, here to help again, the jailers of level 3 greeted warmly. Figo was not only enthusiastic about escorting and imprisoning criminals but also helped with tasks like these whenever he had free time, as they were not very tiring. However, this time, he was not here to help. He unbuttoned his uniform jacket and hung it on the baptism room door handle, revealing the undershirt that highlighted his well-defined muscles. This time I'm not here to help. You'll have to make a few extra trips, brothers. It's a bit stuffy in Impel Down, and I want to take a swim while the supply ship is here, Figo said. This wasn't an unusual request. Impel Down was so isolated that staying too long could drive someone crazy. When the supply ship arrived, many took the opportunity to step out and swim for fresh air. No one thought ill of Figo, a superior officer, taking a break. The jailers responded with understanding humor, some even suggesting they would challenge Figo to a swimming contest. Xiao stood silently on the sidelines, unable to get a word in and feeling somewhat displeased. The deeper the prisoners were held in Impel Down, the stronger they were. In terms of rank, the 3 squads of the first 3 levels were equal, but as the chief of level 3, Xiao always felt he was stronger than Figo and the second squad chief. He maintained a somewhat aloof demeanor when facing ordinary marine jailers. Seeing his squad so friendly with Figo, the first squad chief, left him with a sour taste. It wasn't jealousy, just disapproval. This hypocrite is only aiming for the deputy chief jailer position, so pretentious. Chief Figo might want to emulate the warden and kill a sea king to treat everyone, he said with a forced smile. The platform fell silent. Figo turned to him, smiling, I don't have that ability, Chief Xiao. Xiao chuckled, ah, right. Chief Figo would have to kill a large sea king to treat everyone. You could almost eat a small one by yourself. But going after a large sea king, you'd end up as their meal. Though phrased as a joke, Xiao's serious tone carried a hint of sarcasm, implying Figo was a glutton. The atmosphere grew tense. Figo blinked, eyeing Xiao thoughtfully. They weren't familiar but had no conflicts either, barely acquaintances over the past year. What's his problem? Considering the nearing one-year term and some rumors, Figo softly said, you want to be the deputy chief jailer? Think I'm in your way, don't you? Such a blunt statement. The tension thickened. The jailers pretended to be oblivious, their support for Figo clear. They valued the one who worked alongside them over someone aloof. Xiao's face turned red. The direct competition in 3 days made his ambitions no secret. But how could Figo be so direct? This affront to justice. This affront to justice. Luckily, the arriving supply ship saved Xiao from the awkward situation. He shouted, prepare to receive the ship. He tried to move past the incident without looking at Figo with his loud command. Figo ignored him, thinking that in a world where strength ruled, there was no need for such underhanded tactics. He changed into swimwear and boarded the ship's deck. His goal was simple, to test the fishman power he gained 4 days ago. After greeting the supply ship's captain, Figo leapt off the deck, causing minimal splash, and slipped into the water like a fish. He was already a strong swimmer. But this time, as the sea water enveloped his body, Figo immediately felt a difference. A sensation of innate comfort surged through him. His arms cut through the water effortlessly, the resistance seemingly non-existent. Unable to breathe through his nose and mouth underwater, his skin now absorbed oxygen from the water, eliminating the feeling of holding his breath or suffocating, making the sea feel like home. He felt like he had become a fish, with the ocean as his habitat. As expected. Fishman power equaled underwater breathing? No, maybe more. No wonder it was marked as rare. In a world dominated by oceans, this ability was invaluable. Figo was delighted. Suddenly, he sensed an unusual current behind him, as if a sizable fish was charging at him. This, too, was an effect of the fishman power, making Figo more sensitive to the flow of the sea. His body reacted faster than his thoughts. Figo's hands swept back, and his body swayed like an agile swordfish, propelling him a distance. Sure enough, as he moved, a large figure rushed through his occupied space. But it wasn't a fish. Figo was stunned to see the fishman, fat-headed fish. No, a fellow fishman. He then sensed more movement and quickly glanced around, seeing 2 more fishmen forming a triangle around him with the first, their 6 eyes glinting with malice. 2 minutes earlier, the 3 fishmen, here to rescue a guy, clung tightly to the supply ship, following it to the outskirts of Impel Down. As the ship docked, the 3 fishmen were poised to act. They didn't expect someone to jump off the ship suddenly. Momentarily stunned, the fishman closest to Figo launched an attack, only to find he dodged it. He's a sharp one. Finish him quickly, don't let him alert others. Fishmen could communicate underwater, unlike humans. As long as Figo couldn't surface to signal, their plan wouldn't be exposed. Figo quickly grasped their intent, feeling lucky. If the fishman's attack had been twice as fast, and twice as strong, and armed, he might have been injured. Figo's eyes hardened as he looked at the 3 fishmen. He clenched his right fist, his arm muscles bulging like tree roots. The 3 charging fishmen sensed a foreboding feeling. As Figo swung his fist, unease grew, feeling the rolling sea pressure bearing down on them. What? Not good. Run. Boom. In the calm belt's tranquil sea, waves suddenly exploded, soaking Xiao standing on the ship's edge. The icy water shocked him. What's going on? Underwater, Figo quickly surfaced, clutching the 3 unconscious, wide-eyed fishmen. A year of effort had not been in vain. Physique, 1024. Level 3, extremely strong. Chapter 6 Chief Jailer. Prisoner, Papas. Level, R4. Status, imprisoned. Crime index, 19. Capture participation, 98%. Gain, fishman power, rare, plus 340. 375, level 2 fishman child. Prisoner, N/A. Gain, fishman karate plus 238. 238, level 2 fishman martial artist. Prisoner, N/A. Gain, brewing plus 135. 135, level 2 brewer. The three fishmen who came knocking gave Figo a first-hand experience of the nearly 100% capture participation gains. Even the weakest of them, an N9 level fishman, gave him 135 points in one go, higher than his previous maximum, though the brewing ability he gained wasn't particularly useful. The other two fishmen were above our level, and the random choice of rewards was generally good. He gained more fishman power, pushing it past 300 points and upgrading it to level 2, and acquired the fishman karate he had been yearning for. The gains in fishman power brought even more noticeable changes. Figo clenched his right fist in the air, feeling the enhanced wrist strength as he moved his arm. The wrist strength of fishmen was naturally 10 times that of ordinary humans. This was a significant gain. While Figo was delighted with his gains, Impel Down was in an uproar. A chief easily dealt with the three fishmen who attacked Impel Down, exposing a security flaw in the prison. This era's Impel Down wasn't yet the impregnable fortress guarded by marine warships and the gates of justice. These three weak fishmen taught the marine jailers a valuable lesson about the supposed safety of the calm belt. If Figo hadn't happened to jump into the water to swim, the three fishmen might have caused chaos in Impel Down, even freeing some level 1 prisoners, which would have been a disgrace recorded forever. The captain of the supply ship, who was followed, faced questioning from the warden, looking grim. Even more upset was Xiao. He stared at the three fishmen temporarily locked in level 1, wishing he could stab each one. They were so weak, why come to die? And why die at Figo's hands? Damn it, he got all the credit. Indeed, the outside commotion ended with a warship taking away a guy and the three fishmen. Inside Impel Down, after emphasizing some new security regulations, Figo was commended. Figo, your performance over the past year has been noted by both the warden and me. You captured the fishmen before they could invade, earning great merit. The warden and I have decided to approve your promotion, and it's been reported to the world government. Deputy Warden Caesar said, Raoul will be transferred back to Marine headquarters in 3 days. Kincaid will become the chief jailer, and you will be promoted to deputy chief jailer. Just as expected. Xiao felt a sinking sensation. He was extremely reluctant but didn't dare to oppose openly. He frequently glanced at deputy chief jailer Kincaid, hoping he would object to Figo's easy promotion, as he had mentioned days before. To his delight, Kincaid indeed looked displeased, furrowing his brows. Just as Kincaid was about to speak, Figo said, Deputy Warden, is the deputy chief jailer term still 1 year? Caesar hesitated, then frowned, you want to leave Impel Down? The deputy chief jailer term is 2 years. If you perform well and improve rapidly during that time, you might be directly promoted to a colonel in the headquarters upon transfer. But if you leave now, the headquarters might only grant you a major rank, even considering your recent merits. It was a subtle warning. Figo pondered slightly. 2 years, huh? Xiao was elated, thinking Figo was planning to leave. The others were surprised. Wasn't this such a good opportunity, and didn't he need to consider it? Didn't he want to stay even for a day? He always seemed so enthusiastic about work. They watched as Figo took a deep breath and clearly stated, Deputy Warden, if I say I won't leave for the next 5 years, can I directly compete for the chief jailer position? Caesar was stunned. The transparent second squad chief? Xiao? Kincaid's eyes widened. This guy, what did he say? After several phone calls, Figo and Kincaid stood face to face in the level 1 training area. The world government agreed to Figo's promotion request in principle. A soldier who doesn't want to be a general is not a good soldier. But Impel Down's jailers were not desk officers, they needed the corresponding strength for their positions. If Figo could defeat Kincaid, the chief jailer position would be his. Somehow, the news leaked, and the jailers gathered around the training area, whispering and worried for Figo. Kincaid, a former headquarters lieutenant commander, was a physical monster often seen lifting the largest 1-ton stone roller in the training area, exuding a formidable presence. His 2.5-meter height and extremely muscular physique were intimidating. In contrast, Figo looked strong but comparatively small, with few people betting on his success. Among the few were Caesar, the referee, and Figo's opponent, Kincaid himself. Standing in the center, Kincaid said in a deep voice, "I've wanted to test your strength for a long time, Figo. It's clear to everyone that you're different. Your increasing appetite, flawless prisoner escort records, and recent underwater victory over 3 fishmen, even if they were only fit for the 2nd and 3rd levels. Only fools ignore all your anomalies, thinking they can compete with you for deputy chief jailer." Hidden among the jailers, Xiao was puzzled and gloating over Figo's expected defeat. "Chief jailer, is he talking about me? Even without today's events, in a fair competition, you would still win among the 3 chiefs." Kincaid continued, "But defeating them doesn't mean you can control the 4th-level criminals. If you're not qualified, I'd rather have the headquarters send another officer to partner with me. I didn't expect you to challenge me. If you're not a fool, it means I've underestimated you." He clenched his fists, producing a cracking sound, his massive muscles bulging and exuding a powerful aura, "But if you think you can really beat me, you're gravely mistaken." The jailers murmured among themselves. Figo's expression remained calm. He never intended to hide his strength. Physique encompassed strength, speed, endurance, and more. Over the past year, Figo's physique had increased tenfold, and his strength nearly fourfold, though it still fell short of his initial expectations of reaching the sky. He couldn't shatter the void yet with a punch force of 1 ton, but he was on par with a headquarters lieutenant commander like Kincaid, who specialized in strength. But his improvements weren't limited to physique. Drawing his jailer's sword, Figo addressed Kincaid, "Deputy Chief Jailer, I apologize." "Using a sword?" Kincaid narrowed his eyes, "Come on." Caesar announced the start of the duel. Figo charged forward, his speed explosive. He lowered his center of gravity and shot toward Kincaid like an arrow, drawing gasps from the jailers and paling Xiao. "So fast? Am I, really a fool?" Clang! Amid the clash of metal, Figo's sword slashed Kincaid's arm like a crescent moon. But it didn't cut through. "What? How is that?" The jailers murmured again. A metallic sheen rose on Kincaid's arm, impenetrable. He chuckled, 15 years ago, Vice Admiral Doug created the 6 powers for the Marines. I was lucky to be among the first learners. This is Iron Body. You can't even cut my skin. Really the legendary Iron Body. He can block swords and knives with his body." The jailer's exclamations made Figo feel a bit strange. Was Iron Body still rare in this era? It seemed mediocre. Kincaid's other fist came at Figo's side, but Figo stepped back quickly, the small steps absorbing Kincaid's force, then used it to launch himself back at greater speed. His sword slashed 2 silver arcs in the air, one sword-style secret technique cross-return. A cross-shaped slash flew from his sword, aimed at Kincaid's chest. Kincaid's laugh stopped, his pupils dilating as he roared, "Iron Body!" Clang! Another metallic clash sounded. Figo sheathed his sword and apologized again, "Sorry, Deputy Chief Jailer." Blood spurted from Kincaid's chest. He staggered, bewildered, and sat down heavily. How could this be? How could Iron Body be cut through? What was expected to be a prolonged battle ended abruptly. Figo's 2 strikes took less time than Kincaid's explanations. The jailers gasped, raising the air temperature. The legendary Iron Body was defeated by Chief Figo? Figo won? Hooray! A flying slash? Not quite. Even Caesar was surprised, admiring Figo as he announced, the winner. Figo. Swordsmanship, 1369. Level 3, Iron Cutting Swordsman. Figo preferred to be a graceful swordsman over a brute. Over the past year, whether selecting abilities from R-level criminals or daily practice, swordsmanship was prioritized over physique. The Fishman Power's wrist strength enhancement also made his slash even stronger. A year of honing culminated in this slash, which promoted Figo to Chief Jailer in 3 days. This slash also made Xiao despair, prompting him to request a transfer from Impel Down overnight hastily. Chapter 7 SR and Character Events. As the year ended at Impel Down, there were personnel changes. Some left, some arrived, and some were promoted. After 2 days of turmoil, Impel Down returned to its usual tranquility, and time passed swiftly. Another month flew by. Receiving a call from headquarters, Figo arrived excitedly at the baptism room, accompanied by Deputy Warden Caesar. They were there to welcome a pirate who would be detained in the 5th level of Impel Down. Pirates who need to be detained in the 5th and 6th levels are different from those in the first 4. They are what we call great pirates, with bounties generally exceeding 100 million. Capturing them usually requires a marine officer leading a warship, Caesar explained. In this era, money had more value, or rather, pirates were not as rampant as they would be in the future. The highest bounty currently was just over $1 billion, so a pirate with 100 million bounty was already an extraordinary great pirate. So, until now, the warden and I did not agree to your participation in escorting the 5th and 6th level pirates, fearing unexpected incidents. But since you demonstrated enough strength in your fight with Kincaid, we are relieved. I'll accompany you twice, and if nothing goes wrong, the escort and detention work will be handed over to you. Figo nodded in agreement. A month ago, he had revealed his full strength, aiming to get involved in capturing pirates from the 5th and 6th levels. The 5-year time frame was his self-imposed limit, fearing he might not withstand the solitude of Impel Down and leave before gaining sufficient strength. After 5 years, he would only be 26, still in his prime, free to roam as a vice-admiral, marry a few beautiful wives, and enjoy life. Ahem, back to the main topic. From Figo's observations over the past year, the prisoners in the first level were generally between N5 to N9, the second level between N7 to R3, the third from R1 to R6, and the fourth from R6 to R9. There were very few misclassified pirates. At least until now, Figo had not encountered what he most anticipated, an SR level in the 4th level. So, today's detainee might be the first SR prisoner Figo would handle. How could he not be excited? After a few minutes, the escort ship finally docked outside Impel Down, and Figo saw the target to be imprisoned in the 5th level. A very thin middle-aged man, seemingly ordinary, but his behavior during the baptism was distinctly different. No cries of pain, no screams. After 5 minutes in boiling water, he finally began to struggle and choke. After 2 more minutes, he was pulled out. Despite 7 minutes in boiling water, his skin wasn't severely damaged, indicating a physique and strength surpassing Figo's. After being dressed in prison clothes, he could still stand shakily. No curses or pleas, just a predatory gaze at Figo and Caesar, like a hungry wolf, chilling to the bone. Clearly, he was thinking that if he regained his freedom, he would exact even harsher punishment on the two of them. Fearful, they preemptively broke his legs and dragged him away. He was imprisoned in level 5 of Impel Down. Prisoner, Durham. Level, SR3. Status, imprisoned. Crime Index, 95. Capture participation, 3%. Selectable gains, theft, navigation, observation hacky. Character event, activatable, complete the character event to select another gain from the prisoner and acquire a second ability. As Figo had hoped, he was SR level. The gains were still 3 choices, and one was particularly exciting. Observation hacky. Hacky, a unique power in the pirate world, was something Figo had long desired. Armament hacky for enhanced attacks. Observation hacky for predicting attacks. There weren't many 5th and 6th level prisoners, and not all of them possessed hacky, so the chance of obtaining both abilities was low. But for Figo, activating them was significant, as it allowed him to practice independently. Over the next 5 years, he would have plenty of time to hone these skills. Besides the observation hacky, SR prisoners had an additional feature not found in R or N level prisoners. Character event? Complete the character event to select another gain. This seems like a mission system? Figo pondered for a moment and activated the option marked activatable. Suddenly, an image appeared in his mind. Under a towering ancient tree, the newly imprisoned SR3 level prisoner Durham is using a shovel to bury 2 small chests. The image was incredibly vivid. Figo could almost smell the earth and hear the birds chirping. It seemed to be a real memory from Durham's mind. After the image faded, Durham's character event in the prison file changed. Character event, activated. Durham once buried most of his looted treasures under an ancient tree on Woe Island, but was captured by the Marines before he could retrieve them. Knowing this, he would rather throw the treasure into the sea than let it benefit some future lucky person. Event requirement, let Durham or help Durham throw his treasure into the sea. Figo was taken aback. When he focused on the prison file, he could even faintly feel a phantom directional arrow pointing to the treasure's location. What is this? Wish fulfillment? Figo was speechless for a moment, then relaxed. Well, it's not a bad thing. When I leave Impel Down, I'll find a way to visit that place. A great pirate's treasure should be considerable, a bit of ownerless wealth. Whether he threw it into the sea or not would be up to him. He didn't anticipate that even more absurd character events were yet to come. A month later, another SR-level pirate was imprisoned in the 5th level. Figo activated the character event again. Intense shouts, fierce combat, and boarding battles. This SR-level pirate was captured after a fierce battle with a marine wearing a justice cape. The scene ended, and the character event updated. Character event, activated. Lucille Bailey was defeated by Vice Admiral Hobie and captured by Impel Down, extremely angry and unwilling. Event requirement, let Lucille Bailey or help Lucille Bailey kill Vice Admiral Hobie. Figo. Another month passed. The character event was activated, and a scene appeared. Beautiful women. Various types of beautiful women. Some were demure and tearful, some were charming and seductive, all dancing with fear on their faces, serving wine and entertaining the great pirate imprisoned in Impel Down. Character event, Great Pirate Nishesky heard of the unparalleled beauty of Alabastus Princess but never got to meet her. Event requirement, help Nishesky capture the Princess of Alabasta or capture the Princess of Alabasta to dance and serve wine. Figo. Alabasta? Vivi, her great-grandmother? Beauty runs in the family. No, that wasn't the point. Where was the nemesis of evil promised? Chapter 8 5 Years and the Power of Giants. See calendar year 1420, summer. Outside Impel Down, the sky was clear and bright. The sunlight shone on the windless sea area around the platform, reflecting a dazzling brilliance. Suddenly, a massive shadow rose from the depths, gradually approaching the surface, covering a radius of 100 meters. With a loud crash, an octopus-like sea monster burst through the water, crashing onto the platform of level 0 of Impel Down. The sea monster lay limply on the platform, its height exceeding 30 meters. Its tentacles extended over 100 meters. However, the dozen or so jailers waiting at the platform's edge showed no panic. Once the splashing water had settled, they moved closer. So big. Is this today's lunch and dinner? It looks delicious. Deputy Warden, you've worked hard. At the edge of the platform, Figo, who had jumped onto the platform after the octopus, was bare-chested, wiping water off with a towel handed to him by a jailer. He responded to the jailers with an okay gesture. Time flew by, and almost 5 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Figo was promoted to Deputy Warden 3 years ago and has held the position since. The 5 years hadn't left significant marks on him. His face was only slightly more mature, and his physique hadn't changed much. The biggest change was his height. At the time of his arrival, he was 1.8 meters tall, decent for modern standards but somewhat short in the pirate world. But now, with the growth of his physique and strength, he seemed to have undergone a second growth spurt, his height rapidly increasing from 21 to 26 years old. He now stood at an impressive 2.5 meters. Handing the wet towel back to the jailer, who looked up at him, Figo took a sword from the jailer and said, "Everyone, step back." Swish! 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 Several silver flashes sliced through the air. The massive sea monster was dismembered. The jailers efficiently carried the segments to drain the blood and perform simple processing. "Figo, you took longer than usual this time," a voice called from the side. It was Caesar, now promoted to warden, stepping onto the sea platform. "No choice, it's getting harder to find appropriately sized sea kings. I had to swim a long way to find this one," Figo explained. Caesar was even more exasperated. "Regardless, sea kings are one of the defensive lines of Impel Down. If you keep giving everyone extra meals, that line of defense will collapse completely." For nearly 2 years, Figo had been providing a sea king daily. The sea kings within 50 miles of Impel Down were almost extinct, with no new ones willing to move in. This was indeed Figo's fault. He chuckled awkwardly. "Anyway, there's only a month left. Once I leave, the sea kings will gradually return." Caesar asked, "Are you sure you are leaving?" Figo nodded. "Yes, it's been almost 6 years here. I want to see the outside world." "Ah," Caesar sighed, "we've all been here 6 years. I also want a transfer, but Kincaid is still lacking a bit. He can be deputy warden, but not warden. Ideally, we could get a vice admiral from headquarters, but all of them have their own tasks. Figo replied, we just need to apply for the transfer. The fleet admiral and the world government should make suitable arrangements. Let's hope so, Caesar nodded, then added, but at least we have 1 month left. Let's finish our final tasks. Figo asked, is there a new mission? Caesar nodded, I just received a call from the fleet admiral. There has been some turmoil on the sea lately. One of the dominant pirate factions, the giant warrior pirates, shows signs of disbanding because their 2 leaders, Red Ogre Broggy and Blue Ogre Dory, have suddenly disappeared. Red Ogre Broggy? Blue Ogre Dory? These slightly familiar names made Figo's heart skip a beat. Weren't these the 2 legendary giants Luffy encountered in the little garden early in his journey? After 6 years in this world, Figo finally heard something related to the anime's plot. Those 2 giants fought for 100 years in the little garden. In other words, it was still 100 years before the start of the One Piece storyline? That means I'll be around 126 years old when Luffy sets sail. So far away. Caesar continued, because the 2 leaders disappeared, several major pirates have targeted the giant warrior pirates' territory. The fleet admiral plans to intervene to dismantle the giant warrior pirates and at least capture some giants. So, we need to organize the jailers to widen some corridors and add several cells in the 4th, 5th, and 6th levels that can hold giants. Understood. Widening corridors and renovating cells. In over 20 days, all modifications for imprisoning giants were completed. The Marine headquarters did not let Impel Down's efforts go to waste and sent a captured giant pirate. This giant wasn't strong, only suitable for the 4th level, but Impel Down showed due respect. Both Figo and Caesar were there to receive the ship. Not only that, but newly promoted Chief Jailer Kincaid, the unnamed Deputy Chief Jailer, the 3 chiefs, and half the jailers were present. In this era, without giant marines, the giant race was quite novel to everyone. Soon, the giant arrived, leaving everyone with the first impression, how big. Structurally and facially, they resembled ordinary humans but in a supersized version. There were pirates as tall as 3 or even 4 meters, but compared to the giant, they were just children. Generally speaking, the larger the giant, the stronger they were. Even this lackey among giants stood over 8 meters tall. At 2.5 meters, Figo felt small again. He had to raise his leg high to kick the giant's knee. But while the size was impressive, the strength was not. A lackey among giants could not surpass human powerhouses like Caesar and Figo, making the arrangements easier. The baptism was skipped. There wasn't a pot that big. Prison clothes were prepared in advance. They poured boiling water over him and dressed him. Impel Down's first giant prisoner was successfully imprisoned in the 4th level. About half a minute later, Figo's prison file automatically opened again, turning to a blank page and imprinting the giant's image with text. Prisoner, Peter. Level, R8. Status, imprisoned. Crime Index, 17. Capture participation, 3%. Selectable gains, Giant's Strength, Rare, Giant Axe, Shipwright. Figo thought, as expected. Capturing a fishman gave him fishman power. Capturing a giant naturally gave him giant's strength. Fishman power allowed him to swim like a fishman. What would giant's strength do? Make him bigger? Increase his strength? Figo selected, Giant's Strength. Gain, Giant's Strength, Rare, plus 14. 14, Level 1 Giant Juvenile. As with Fishman power, selecting Giant's Strength immediately made Figo feel like something had changed. No, it felt like something was removed. It seemed as if a certain restriction had been lifted, making his body feel lighter. With his keen awareness of his muscles, Figo sensed a slight increase in strength, almost imperceptible compared to his current physique. The change wasn't just in strength. Where did this lightness come from? Breaking free from the limitations of ordinary human height? Figo didn't particularly want to grow into a giant. Giants, the giant race. Figo pondered. Besides their size, what else distinguished giants from humans? His thoughts drifted to the Red Ogre and Blue Ogre, probably fighting in the little garden now, and to the storyline where Luffy encountered the 2 legendary giants. Wait! The 2 giants had been fighting for 100 years at that time. They were still in their prime. Figo's heart jolted. Giants lived to be 350 years old. Could it be? The effect of giant's strength includes increased lifespan? Chapter 9 The Final 2 Years and Departure. The possibility that Giant's power might extend his lifespan left Figo deeply unsettled. What if he could live to be 350 years old? Even at 126, when Luffy sets sail, he would still be in his prime after a century of guarding Impel Down. Of course, spending 100 years in Impel Down was out of the question. Even if he were immortal, there was no need to waste his youth here. But if he could live for 350 years, should he consider staying in Impel Down for another 2 years? Over the past 6 years since his transmigration, Figo had grown comfortable and accustomed to life in Impel Down. More importantly, there were likely more giant pirates to come, ready for him to exploit. Or perhaps he could leave Impel Down and actively participate in dismantling the giant warrior pirates, capturing giants himself? Previously, Figo chose safety because he was weak and afraid of death. Now, whether to continue playing it safe or take risks was a difficult decision. Thinking too far ahead. It's still uncertain if the power of giants can extend my lifespan. After much deliberation, Figo decided to stop overthinking. Because it was time for dinner. The pirate world was indeed a paradise for food lovers. The various strange sea kings all had one common trait. Their meat was delicious. 365 days of different flavors, and no need to worry about gaining weight. Heaven couldn't be much better. Today's meal was the sea king Figo had caught in the morning. It looked strange, with a cow's head and a fish's body. The taste followed the head. It couldn't compare to this quality even if it were Wagyu beef. Figo quickly forgot all other thoughts, immersing himself in the deliciousness. Perhaps due to the effect of the giant's power on his physique, Figo's appetite was excellent today. Unknowingly, several 100 pounds of meat disappeared into his bottomless stomach. Wiping the grease from his mouth and letting out a satisfied burp, Figo left the private room specially set up for him in the kitchen to facilitate serving. Figo's eating took time. When he left the private room, the dining hall was usually almost empty, with only a few kitchen staff members left. But today was different. The dining hall was packed with jailers, all eagerly watching the direction of the private room, seemingly waiting for Figo. As Figo emerged, a small commotion arose among the jailers, and one stepped forward, saying, "Deputy Warden Figo, we heard, you're planning to transfer out of Impel Down." Figo responded, "Your news is pretty accurate. I was planning to announce it before leaving." "What, you don't want me to go?" Of course, they didn't want him to go. Because of Figo, the average weight of the jailers had increased by over 8 pounds each year. Ahem, of course, their average strength and power also increased. Sea King meat was highly nutritious. Moreover, whether as chief jailer or deputy warden, Figo had always worked diligently on the front lines of escorting pirates. He did it for the gains in his prison file, but the jailers didn't know that. They just thought Figo was a hard-working leader who led by example. Especially the initial group of jailers, who admired Figo immensely. Hearing Figo's confirmation, many were moved to tears, even making exaggerated gestures of despair. "Deputy Warden. Woo, are you really leaving? Take me with you." "Why?" The crying made Figo uncomfortable, and he scolded, "I haven't decided yet. Go back to your work and stop crying around me." Thinking of the future, with no female jailers currently in Impel Down and many men crying around him, Figo felt very awkward. Hastily leaving the dining hall, Figo went directly to find Caesar. Caesar was waiting for him and immediately said, "The transfer order from headquarters has arrived. Figo, you can leave Impel Down with the warship coming to receive new staff in 3 days. The fleet admiral will personally confer upon you the rank of Rear Admiral." Figo asked, "Rear Admiral? What about you?" "I have to stay for another 2 years, Caesar said helplessly, "to let Kincaid gain experience as deputy warden before I can leave." Figo frowned, feeling more conflicted. Thinking about the effect of the giant's power, the jailers in the dining hall just now, and the helpless look on Caesar's face, he finally shook his head, "Forget it, you go. I'll stay for another 2 years." Caesar was stunned. "Figo, you... I'm not satisfied. Why should I leave as a rear admiral while you leave as a vice admiral? Tell the fleet admiral, I'll stay for another 2 years and leave as a vice admiral." Figo smiled. Caesar said, "When I transferred to Impel Down 6 years ago, I was already a rear admiral. At that time, you were just a captain. Besides, you're only 26. You won't accept my offer." "No, no, no. Caesar quickly shook his head and then solemnly said, "Thank you, Figo." Soon, the news spread, and Impel Down erupted in cheers. Figo initially felt helpless but couldn't help but laugh when he saw Caesar's darkened face, thinking the jailers were quite cute. Fine, another 2 years then. The final 2 years. Thus, 2 years flew by. See calendar year 1422. Impel Down, Warden's office. Figo lay on his bed, chatting with the fleet admiral through the warden's exclusive Den Mushi. The Den Mushi on his arm, with a stern expression, spoke in a deep voice, "Figo, are you really determined to leave Impel Down this time?" "Yes, Fleet Admiral." The Den Mushi nodded its antennae, "Hand over your duties to Kincaid. 3 days from now, welcome the new jailers and return to headquarters with that warship." "Understood." "And, 2 days from now, another warship will arrive to take the 7 giants currently imprisoned in Impel Down," the Fleet Admiral added. Figo was taken aback. "Take them?" Impel Down was typically a one-way trip. Leaving usually meant execution. "That's right. They will be escorted by the warship to Woe Island, near Elbaf, for public execution," the Fleet Admiral explained. "I see." Figo understood but suddenly found the name Woe Island familiar. The prison file opened in his mind, and Figo quickly searched, finding Durham, the first SR-level pirate he had helped imprison 7 years ago. Character event, activated. Durham once buried most of his looted treasures under an ancient tree on Woe Island. Event requirement, let Durham or help Durham throw his treasure into the sea. Sure enough. What a coincidence. Figo's mind raced, and he quickly said before the Fleet Admiral could hang up, "Fleet Admiral, I want to leave with the warship escorting the giants." Haha, I've been in Impel Down for 8 years and want to go out and have a look. Can I have a month's vacation?" The Fleet Admiral was silent momentarily before saying, "Very well. The world government will also be involved in this execution. It seems they have some plans, and I feel more at ease with you there. But avoid conflicts with their intelligence agents, just treat it as a vacation." From the tone, it seemed the world government's plans for this execution were kept from the Fleet Admiral, making him uneasy or even dissatisfied. Figo replied, "Yes, understood." Hanging up the Den Mushi, Figo turned over and immediately went to hand over his duties to Kincaid. Receiving a transport ship, personally operating the crane for a baptism, beating up an unruly 5th-level pirate, and giving half a loaf of bread to a starving 6th-level great pirate. The last 2 days passed in work. 2 days later, Figo took off the warden's uniform he had worn for years, leaving only a pair of sunglasses, and changed into a well-fitting casual outfit brought by the supply ship, looking refreshed. He escorted the 7 giants out. The corridor leading from the lower levels to the sea platform was lined with jailers bidding him farewell. They wept again. This time, Figo didn't find it exaggerated. "Everyone, goodbye. Yaa. Warden. Figo-sama. Safe travels. Yaa." Stepping onto the sea platform again, Figo's feelings were entirely different from before. 8 years. Pirate world, here I come. Inside Impel Down, the increasingly robust Kincaid took over Figo's position as warden, watching the slowly closing gates, the crying jailers, and Figo's disappearing figure, feeling somewhat dazed. Did he leave? The guy who had been pressuring me since defeating me, just left like that? From now on, I'm in charge of Impel Down? Once Figo decided to leave, he did so without hesitation or looking back. Chapter 10. CP9. Having spent 8 years in Impel Down, Figo had come to see it as his home in the world of pirates. Naturally, he felt a bit nostalgic upon leaving. But more than anything, he felt anticipation. How vast could this ocean be? Having only explored about 50 nautical miles around Impel Down, Figo had barely scratched the surface. Boarding the massive warship transporting 7 young giants, Figo gazed out at the sea, feeling a surge of excitement. "I came, I saw, I conquered. I'm losing my mind." Feeling slightly embarrassed, Figo quietly herded the 7 giants into the ship's prison cells. Watching them huddle in the cells that were not quite the right size, Figo felt somewhat dissatisfied. Not only were the cells small, but there were also too few of them. What if they encountered pirates during the voyage? Having insufficient cells would be a hassle. When I have my own warship, I'll make sure to install as many cells as possible. Go out, capture as many as possible, and return fully loaded. Figo-sama. At this moment, a familiar, awkward voice called out, "Long time no see. I've prepared your resting quarters." This voice was familiar yet uncomfortable. Figo turned and saw a tall, thin man wearing a justice cloak. The face was also familiar. After a brief moment, Figo recognized him and said with surprise, "Old Shaw." "Old Shaw? What kind of nickname is that?" Ever since that night 7 years ago when he tried to compete with Figo for the deputy warden position and fled in fear, Shaw had thought he would never cross paths with him again. But upon hearing that Figo was going to board this transport ship, Shaw nearly broke down. However, it seemed Figo didn't hold a grudge over their past conflict, and Shaw secretly breathed a sigh of relief. "Old Shaw it is, then. Figo-sama, it's me. It really has been a while. You've been promoted to lieutenant commander, I see." Figo was puzzled. "Are you the captain of this transport ship?" It wasn't that Figo looked down on Shaw, but with 7 giants, including 3 SR level, a minor mishap could lead to a massacre. The entire ship could be annihilated. "I only decided to board 2 days ago." As expected, Shaw subtly hinted at the cells holding the 7 giants, then gestured for Figo to follow him. Figo followed Shaw to the ship's rear, where Shaw knocked on a cabin door and invited Figo inside. The cabin contained 3 individuals dressed as ordinary sailors, 2 men and 1 woman, but their demeanor was ordinary. Seeing Figo, the 3 stood up, and the leading man extended his hand in greeting. "Hello, Warden Figo." Figo had his suspicions and shook the man's hand. "World government agents? You are the real ones in charge of this ship, aren't you? Why the disguise?" "CP9, Peslo." The man, Peslo, introduced himself sternly. "Our reasons for disguising are not your concern. According to the Navy headquarters, you're just on vacation with this ship, so there's no need for you to understand our mission." Figo responded, "All right." His straightforwardness left the 3 CP9 agents momentarily stunned. "Is he that easygoing?" After a pause, Peslo added, "One more thing. During the execution of the 7 giants, no matter what happens, do not intervene. I mean, no matter what." There was a hint of warning in his tone. "Got it," Figo replied just as straightforwardly. The 3 CP9 agents exchanged confused glances, feeling a bit off-kilter. "Is this attitude for real? He's not a Navy plant to monitor our operation? It seems like a big operation." Figo, guided by Shaw to his quarters, genuinely wanted to stay out of trouble. Fresh out of Impel Down, he just wanted to explore the world a bit. As long as their operation is targeting giants and has nothing to do with the treasure, that's fine. A faint rocking sensation ensued. The transport ship set sail. What is it like to sail far away? Surrounded by endless oceans. It's fresh for a day, but by the second day, it gets boring. No pirate attacks, no sudden storms. Because the route from Impel Down to Woe Island lies entirely within the calm belt, there wouldn't be pirate ships or abnormal weather. A reader pointed out that sea stone technology for sailing was invented by Vegapunk, which hasn't happened yet. My apologies for this oversight, please forgive a newbie One Piece writer. Even swimming a few laps was out of the question. This wasn't near Impel Down. Impel Down's shell had sea stone components, so the largest sea kings nearby were only a few hundred meters long. Figo could catch and kill them at will, eating them whenever he wanted. In the ocean's heart were those colossal sea kings, over 1,000 or even 5,000 meters long. Figo didn't want to test his strength against such creatures. Bored, Figo lay on the deck, sunbathing and watching some anime. Over 7 years, he had participated in capturing over 100 SR-level pirates, half of whose character events were activated, half not. Since the scenes during activation could be long or short, some were not suitable for all ages. Don't get the wrong idea, they were just too gory. Figo worried that watching too much might desensitize him, so now that he had left Impel Down, he could pick and choose. There might even be some he could resolve easily. Character event activated, kill a rear admiral. Character event activated, kill a vice admiral. Character event activated, kill all navy. A trio of murderous tasks left Figo feeling dizzy, cursing internally. After a pause, he activated the 4th one. This time, it was somewhat normal. A great pirate worrying about his young, beautiful wife and infant son being mistreated after his capture. The event required providing them with some care. Figo noted the location, thinking that if he ever encountered them and confirmed they weren't evil, he could throw a few 100,000 berries their way in exchange for an ability. He continued with the 5th and 6th. Wait, was there one giant whose character event wasn't activated? Figo checked the image and recalled it was the last giant captured a month ago, the 7th of the group. His name was Kevin, with a crime index of only 3, relatively pure among the villains in Impel Down. The abilities offered were excellent, with one being armament haki and another Elbaf's spear. Figo remembered he had been conflicted for half a day over which ability to choose, then forgot about the character event. With the warm sun on his face, Figo comfortably squinted, continuing to watch his anime. Daddy, come back soon. A 3 or 4-year-old giant girl tugged at Kevin's pants, smiling sweetly. Kevin patted the girl's head affectionately, then turned to another male giant nearby, saying, "While I'm gone, I'll have to rely on you to take care of little Kelly, Vina." "Don't worry, Kevin." Kevin smiled gratefully and left with a backpack. At this time, he was not yet a pirate, just a single father raising his daughter. This trip was merely to buy some daily necessities from a distant giant town, and he would return the next day. Seeing this, Figo's brows furrowed slightly. Based on his extensive experience with TV shows, a tragedy is likely about to unfold. Pirate attack? Natural disaster? The development was predictable yet unexpected. The scene shifted to Kevin returning home with large and small packages, calling out a few times. His adorable daughter did not come out to greet him. Opening the door in confusion, Kevin was instantly devastated by what he saw. The giant he had entrusted with his daughter was holding her by the neck. Hearing the door open, the giant turned and smiled sinisterly at Kevin. The 3 or 4-year-old giant girl appeared to have been dead for some time, her small tongue hanging out, her face still showing bewilderment, asking innocent questions. "Kelly." The scene turned blood red. Figo sat up abruptly, brows furrowed. Seeing the death of such a pure young life made him uncomfortable, and from a bystander's perspective, the killer giant's state seemed off. A devil fruit ability. Character event, activated. The death of his daughter robbed Kevin of his rational judgment. Enraged, he killed Vina without giving him a chance to explain. But later, he felt that Vina's motives and behavior were off. Event requirement, let Kevin or help Kevin find the true cause of Kelly's death and kill or capture the real culprit. This is what being a crime fighter should be about. Figo's expression grew serious. Focusing on the event, a guiding arrow appeared in his mind, pointing him in the right direction for investigation. After discerning the direction, Figo's expression changed. The arrow pointed nearby. Was it CP9, Peslo?